Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and welcome to LifeSpa.com, where we prove the ancient medical wisdom of Ayurveda with modern science. And today I want to talk about healing. Healing the body and healing at a distance, something called distance healing, healing through prayer or intention at a distance. This is something that has been well understood in Ayurvedic medicine, been around for thousands and thousands of years, but new research has given us some interesting understanding and a mechanism for how distance healing can in fact work. And Ayurveda starts with prana, the life force, and recently prana or life force has been linked to something in the body called biophotons. That the body emits out of the body these ultra-weak biophoton emissions, or UPEs, and it's constantly releasing some of these biophotons. But when people meditate and do yoga, they produce less of these biophotons. So when they dug in and tried to figure out how that works, they found that these biophotons reside within the DNA. And if the DNA gets damaged, then these photons are released and they produce a lot of free radical damage because of the damage of the DNA. And meditation and yoga and breathing and antioxidants even have been shown to reduce the free radical damage and also reduce the biophoton emissions and also do some repair of the DNA. In fact, meditation is actually been found to repair DNA, and that was Nobel Prize winning science by Elizabeth Blackburn, who found that meditation actually helps to lengthen the telomeres on the chromosomes in your body, which are connected to the DNA. So we have good science to show that meditation can repair the DNA, which is really important. But so what happens is, what they discovered is that these photons, when they're not damaged, they are actually cell-to-cell communicators in the body. And they communicate at vast distances in the body without touch, without communication. They communicate cell-to-cell instantaneously at the speed of light. Remember, these are photons, so they are actually particles of light, right? So to give you an example, they did one study where they took some rodents and they irradiated, they gave a dose of radiation to the brain of one rodent. They put another rodent in the cage with that rodent who had their brain irradiated, and they kept them together for 48 hours. After 48 hours, they measured the rodent they put in there with the irradiated brain rodent, and the rodent that they put in there who wasn't irradiated actually had the similar or even greater changes from the radiation than the rodent that was in fact radiated. They tracked the mechanism for that and they found it was biophotons. So what they're proving is that these biophotons can communicate cell to cell at a distance, and even from animal to animal or species to species outside of the body, from one animal to another. We'll talk more about that in a second. So these particles, these photon particles that communicate within our body at the speed of light, and possibly even outside our body at distances, which Einstein talked about, called spooky action at a distance, where these photons, we're talking the same thing, biophotons or photons, particles of light, can communicate at vast distances at the speed of light instantaneously. And the science shows that if you provide intention to these particles, that the biophotons can actually carry the intention. So it's very possible that when you meditate or you pray for somebody and you provide intention, that you actually can create a physical change in the body. And that's what the science is showing, that the intention will alter the biophotons, which elicit a physiological structural change in the body, like a healing response. And that can happen according to Einstein's theory of what's called spooky action at a distance, where these photons can interact with each other over vast distances at the speed of light instantaneously. So there's a lot of very interesting understanding of how that can happen. So I want to talk about the Vedic understanding of how that might actually work. Stay with me. So when you think about these particles, right, they're particles of light, but they're also quantum particles. They can be a quantum wave or a photon of light. depending. And they proved that with the very famous double slit experiments where they found that particles, photon particles, can actually change into waveforms. So they could be either a wave or a particle. Those are the exact same particles that we're talking about in our body, called biophotons. So they can be either a wave or they can be a particle. So from the Ayurvedic perspective, we're talking about these biophotons live at the junction between consciousness or field and structure or matter. In an Ayurvedic medicine, the source or the cause of all disease is called pragya parad, which is the mistake of the intellect. It's understood in Ayurveda that everything comes from a field, an energetic field of consciousness. Is very accepted as part of the quantum physics unified field theories. And then that those fields sort of concentrate their waveforms and become these photon particles. And they live at that junction between field and matter. So think about this for a second. Ayurveda says that the healing takes place, or the disease takes place, when the field becomes matter and the matter forgets that it's part of the field. It starts to function as independent from the whole. And healing means to get all the cells to start to function as a global kind of unit versus an isolated part. So that, and so we start to, thus the notion that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, which is, from the Vedic perspective, a piece of the healing process. So the cause of disease is when the field becomes matter and the matter forgets that it's part of the field. It's called the mistake of the intellect. Think of that thinking as something different, maybe something special. So if you were going to try to heal that, where would you want to put your attention? Well, you'd want to put your attention right at that junction point between the consciousness and the matter. And if you were living or aware at the consciousness and matter junction point, you would then be aware of the consciousness from which you came, and you would also allow awareness to move into the density of the physical body that might have lost its way. It's sort of like putting a light or a lamp at a doorway. The light shines in the room and outside of the room. So if you could bring your attention to the lamp at the door, to the junction point between consciousness and matter, which is a classic Vedic understanding of healing, you then create awareness and you restore the memory of pure consciousness in every cell of the body. Well, this is exactly what the biophoton research is telling us. It's telling us that these photons can be particles or they can be waveforms. And because they live at that junction point, if you impregnated an intention into that photon, you are impregnating attention to a particle that lives at the junction point between consciousness and matter. And since these are photons, and Einstein in the 1930s discovered something called spooky action at a distance, which means that these photons can interact with each other over vast distances at the speed of light instantaneously, that they're not affected by space or time. So we're getting into the body being part of this quantum world, which is quite exciting. So when you pray for someone and you create an intention to heal them, and the particles inside of you are entangled or connected to the particles inside of them, maybe on the other side of the planet, because there's a relationship, that this intention could actually provide a heightened state of awareness at the junction point between consciousness and matter, where the matter has thought of itself as separate from the whole, and the restoring and the restoration of the memory of functioning as a whole or functioning as pure consciousness infused into the physical body elicits a healing response. So I'm taking you very, very far away from what the biophoton research is saying. But what biophoton research is saying is, yes, there are emitters of these photons out of our body. Our skin is a receiver for these photons. The science shows that these photons are changed. They change physical structure with intention. They are actually able to communicate from animal to animal outside of our body. Quantum physics tells us that this happens over a very large distance at the speed of light. Biophoton research says it happens within our body at the speed of light, and even from animal to animal. So it's not a big stretch to take it where I just took it. And since we do know that photons are and can be, with good science, either particles or waveforms, then they do live at the junction point between consciousness and matter, if you believe, which is a bit of a quantum physics stretch. Not everybody believes that consciousness is the unified field, but even if it isn't consciousness, let's call it the unified field, it does become matter. That is very well accepted. And if you can function at that level where field becomes matter, you function at the place where it all starts. And from the Vedic perspective, when the matter starts to forget that it's in fact pure consciousness, that's when, or that it's part of this field, that it's part of the whole, and starts to function independently, that's when things start to break down, because the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's something that we know in the body as well. And the whole doesn't exist only inside of us. The whole means that you and me and everybody on the planet and the animals and the plants are all part of this quantum physical whole, and that we all interact with each other, which is why our intentions are so critically important. The thoughts that we think are so critically important, and why Ayurveda spent so much time talking about what you see, you become, what you think, you become, what you feel, you become, what you touch, you become, how everything that you expose yourself to, it changes you energetically. And now we have the science and the mechanism to say, yep, that's going to alter your biophotons. And those biophotons are being emitted out of your body, and they're being received around the world at the speed of light instantaneously. Hard to believe, I know. But we can change the consciousness by our intention. And that's the big message here. Boy, there's so much to talk about here. I'm writing a handful of articles on this topic, and I've got one pretty comprehensive on everything I talked about today that I invite you to read, about prana, intention, and healing at a distance, and healing locally, and how important it is to have this understanding, which really boils all down to, hey, what are your intentions, and how powerful are our thoughts, and how affected we are by what we expose ourselves to, and then starting to scrub that a little bit and start to bring ourselves back into balance by doing things like getting out into nature and going in the woods and really connecting with these beautiful rhythms of nature that keep us connected, and look for opportunities in your life day after day after day to love, give, care, and spread joy to others, because it seems like it's more powerful than we thought. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard. Do you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe and share.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa, where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at LifeSpa.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.